we have some newbies here. I'm gonna tell you a few words about Future Female. Future Female is actually having our 10-year anniversary next year. So we have been, give the next year then. So we have been one of the first female networks. And our founder is not here today, unfortunately, but they are still helping us out. Our team, but yeah, there's 4 of us currently who is running this non-profit organization. This is our volunteer job, I could say. And we organize around 20 to 30 events per year. How we do this, we have lovely companies who are helping us. They offer us this spaces like this, and they offer us lovely food and drinks. And of course, the topics are very important. They are the theme is always something related to tech. We are kind of organization who wants to bring the kind of joy of technology to anyone. You don't need to work in tech. You maybe want to work in tech. I actually started a new job just 2 weeks ago. I have been working in marketing over 15 years. And now I can tell I'm a woman in tech. So it took quite a long time, but I'm now there. But I hope you enjoy today's topic. It's very interesting. It's very trendy, I would say. I really hope you have a lot of opinions and views about this topic, and be brave and give shout out. All right.
Hi guys. How are you feeling today? Good, amazing, yay. Okay, so my name is Laura and I work at New Things company. You might be able to tell. I work as an in-house recruiter and in kind of people operations, so like HR, but I hate the term HR. I don't want to use it. So I'm just going to give you a short presentation about who we are, what this company is about, and why we are here in our kind of spaces today. So this is our team right here. We went sailing before the summer. We are a new kind of digital consultancy founded in 2017 together with Reactor. So 11 developers, we have 3 designers and 2 back office developers. Me and Sami, we work on everything else except for coding or design. We have this culture that we've been building, kind of flat hierarchy, self-organization, trust and transparency, but I think that that's kind of the norm now in IT, I feel like. But then we have our own little spice, so I think that we have found in our culture kind of these buzzwords that curiosity and empathy would describe us as a group quite well. Curiosity is it's shown in our culture. We put time aside every week and then sometimes a little more time aside to just kind of experiment with something new. It might be something tech related or a new business model or culture related or something, but we put time aside to develop this company and ourselves. Empathy is a really fuzzy word. It's very hard to describe why this came about, but I guess it's just the kind of good luck we have had with the kind of people that we've managed to get here. So everyone is super experienced and super pros, but except for me actually.
You can't really say that when you're.
Well, I have the least experience, so.
Still,
you have your own.
Be a pro.
Yes, I do. I'm a strong, independent recruiter. But even though they're these, super experienced people, there are no egos here, and this is something that I found out very quickly starting to work with these guys. Wow, there is so much empathy in this room. Everyone listens and cares, and yeah, it's just really nice people. We are owned by Reactor. Actually, Talented owns a chunk of us, and then we own the rest. Here are some examples of kind of customers that we work with in Finland, but I'm not going to take too much time to explain what we do, nor could I, maybe in detail. But everyone here can tell you more if you're interested. We love to talk about ourselves and listen and learn about new people too.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So my name is Laura Heikkurinen, and I'm just looking at the picture and the numbers. I hear there's a lot of diversity in terms of gender balance. I don't see. Maybe this is more a question for Sami than in the back or somewhere.
No, it's a question for me
okay,
too.
So what are you doing in order to kind of get this gender balance and more women in tech?
Well, we are trying our best, but it's super difficult to find and hire, well, at least like developers when we require a certain amount of kind of seniority. And then it's just really tough when there is such an imbalance in the gender division in this industry in general. Let's answer your question. But what we're doing is I am like targeting people, so I'm quite.
That's why you're here today. We have many senior people and she's your lady.
There we go.
Yeah, so you might have gotten a message from me in the past. I'm sorry if it's in the spam folder. Yeah, but good question. Yeah. So not going further into detail about that. But why are we here today at New Things office? Well, the first thing that I put down is like this personal passion that I have for this subject, which has been in me since I started in the tech industry 5 years ago. I've always been like kind of one of the rare women in the team, and I've seen a lot of different teams that some have more diversity, some less, and some function better and some don't. And I've wondered what it is that makes the teams like functional. So I started looking into this more when we started building a more diverse team. And for us right now, it means that we don't have this gender division that we want, but we have 6 different nationalities in these 16 people that we have. And actually, before we even had anyone who spoke English, all of our communications were in English, because we knew that we want to have a diverse way of thinking. And then the third point, kind of just reading the conversations, reading the research that is out there right now, it all seems to suggest that there is actual scientific proof to back the fact that diverse teams function better and they produce better services for a wider range of customers. But I know that there is a lot of people here who know more about this, and you will hear more about this too. So the last point for us to organize this is we want to learn more about this. So what's a better way to learn than to invite someone really smart to talk about it, and then invite a bunch of smart people who will ask a lot of smart questions about the topic. So it's kind of selfish.
But it's a good way, selfish.
So here, thank you for listening. That was my 2 slides. This is the 3rd one. We are hiring also. So if any one of you is interested, come to talk to any one of us and go to our website to find out more. And yeah. Thanks.
What kind of people do you hire?
Right now we're actively looking for the same thing that everyone else is looking for. So software developers, mostly like people who are into web technologies. Mostly we're looking for people who are really kind of like sharing our curiosity and they want to develop themselves. And also maybe like an interest in like how to build a new consultancy and what would make like an excellent company. And so maybe, yeah. But we're open to all applications and want to talk to new people. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
So yeah, hi everybody. My name is Teemu Tiilikainen. I'm from Talented, as you can see from the shirt. First of all, there was the question that who are we and what is Talented? We are a network and a community for experienced IT professionals. We do a lot of like different stuff, but I think the focus today is that We work a lot in like IT recruitment business, and the diversity is actually one of the things that we struggle with a lot. And I must give like kudos for NTC being actually like one of the most diverse workplaces there are in IT business among the clients that we work with. A fair warning about my presentation: it's gonna be a Pecha Kutsa presentation. Given this like gracious time slot I have been given in, I've always wanted to give like a Pecha Kutsa presentations, and for those who don't know, it's 20 slides, each shown 20 seconds. There's not gonna be any text. There's only like pictures that should be make you think about things. I'm gonna explain what those like mean, and like you should follow there. But I'm gonna take the questions at the end of the presentation, so I won't get mixed up in the like the presentation and in the time slots I have for each slide. So yeah, I have like 20 seconds for each slide. Luckily, I gave introduction already before the slide, so two of the first slides are quite yeah. But yeah, thanks for having me here. Yeah, like I said, we founded the Talented in like an idea that each IT professional should have their own agent, and that's also what one of the things that we do. And like I said, we struggle with diversity quite a lot because the companies usually have a lot of like excuses why don't they hire diverse talents to their companies. And even though we know that diverse workplaces usually result in better results, IT business in general, especially in Finland, is really not that diverse. And I think like Katja's presentation next will talk about this quite a lot more. And despite the evidence, many companies are still recruiting like more of the same people instead of like aiming for diversity. And I think that's because they have like usually systemic problems and like bias built in their like recruitment processes. And one of those like biases creeps into the recruitment process easily. We are hiring for this like cultural fit. I think you have all heard about this term that we are looking for a great culture fit, which usually means that we are looking for similar kind of people as we are. Also, managing diversity comes with its own problems, since it actually like the benefits of diversity, such as like innovation and creativity, are often result of like managing those conflicts and handling those as a like organization, and usually it's just the thing that people are afraid of conflicts. And even though we are not that diverse, we still have like I think good balance between like women and men in our organization. We have had our own conflicts still to be resolved, and we have actually like used external professionals to help us like educate our organization to handle those conflicts. And I think that only when you are like able to handle those conflicts as a like organization can those like 1 + 1 become 3 and not 1 + 1 is 1. So now to the actual like topic of my presentation. So what can we do in recruitment processes to gain more diversity through the recruitment to our organization? I think the most classic example and the easiest thing to do is go through your like job postings and read them through carefully and make them like attract more diverse candidates. The language you use in the job postings make really great, like huge difference in the like the diversity of the applications. And I guess the classic example of this is the use of words like masculine words such as like ambitious and dominate, which are less attractive to female applicants. Yeah, there is tools for that. The other thing you can do is to offer more like workplace policies that are more appealing to diverse candidates. Flexibility is one of the huge things. Research has found that actually like those organizations and workplaces who offer high level of flexibility, have more diverse workforce. And flexibility in a way such as like a remote work and flexible working hours also helps with employee retention, since like long commutes is actually one of the biggest reasons people change their job place. You should also make the use of your applicant tracking system. Many of those ATS systems can anonymize the applicant's profile and CV in a way that there is no room for interview bias when they are interviewing those candidates. Also, personality assessments are a great tool to be used. They also have great tools to measure candidate other personality traits, such as motivation and skills. But studies have shown that those companies that use personality assessments usually have more diverse workforce. One thing that can be a huge bottleneck for your sourcing is hiring through referrals. So usually when you are using referrals as a primary source for finding candidates, it can be a bottleneck for diversity, since your network is usually consisting of similar kind of people than you, mostly than more different. And also, LinkedIn data has shown us that women are more likely to search jobs from third-party websites and other sources, and men are more likely to use their networks. You should also seed your candidate pipeline with more diverse candidates, because when the final candidate pool, let's say top 5, has only one minority candidate, she or he has basically zero chance of getting into that job. But studies have shown that perhaps if you have in the final candidate pool, for example, two women, women is 80 times likely to be hired to that job than when there's only one woman. And diversity is really important. And I want to thank Future Female Network for having us here. And many of my friends come here really often to these meetups, and thanks for all the effort you are making to increase diversity on behalf of whole Talented and Talented Network.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hey, so excited to be here with you. We have such a wonderful group here. I know we have some experts of diversity and inclusion here, and I want to learn more about you as well. And as we have this intimate group here, I hope we're going to have a conversations here during this presentation. So I have maybe a 20-minute presentation, and then we have also maybe 10 to 15 minutes for the discussions at any point. So I love conversations, so feel free to jump in and ask, and maybe if there's too much conversations and we don't have time to go through the slides, maybe we can fast forward or then just enjoy discussing. My name is Katja Toropainen and I'm founder of Inklusiiv. How many of you have heard of Inklusiiv before? Wow, amazing. How many of you are some sort of professionals in the diversity and inclusion space? There's a few, yeah. How many of you are kind of beginners learning about this topic? All right. And how many of you are working in tech? Yeah. And how many of you are familiar with the startup scene? Okay, awesome. So now we know each other a bit better, and feel free to ask questions during the presentation. My main point of view here that I want to talk to you about is that if we would really know all the things that are happening in tech right now, I think we'd be panicking. We have technologies that are discriminating against groups of people, that are being racist, that are enabling harassment and hate speech, and even threatening our democracy. So we should really be more brave and have these tough conversations as well and make tech better. And how I came to learn about these things was during the Slush. So I was for the past 2 years in the leadership team at Slush, startup and tech event. And I was running the program and speakers there, the operations. And I got to spend 2 years really getting to know the startup and tech industry globally. I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley and was meeting entrepreneurs and investors and really learning from them what's happening. And there's really one thing that stuck with me and that I'm still working with, and that is diversity and inclusion. And we have a huge, huge problem with that. And luckily, last year in the tech industry, this was one of the biggest topics. I was following these conversations in Sweden, in the UK, in the US, but I felt that in Finland we were silent. And that's why in April, something happened. I was tweeting about this recruitment post by Vinsit, Parempi Mikko, and it went viral, and the CEO came to reply to the tweet thread, and that's why media picked it up, and a great conversation started. And I was kind of shocked by the state of and the level of discussions here, to really note that after 2 years being in really international environment, we needed to have this sort of conversation. So I felt I really need to do something. In 2 weeks, I created this website called Inklusiiv that serves as a manifesto and as an open data bank for everyone to learn about diversity and inclusion in the workplace context. And it became like the launch was amazing. I got so many messages from people sharing their stories and from companies. So that's why I've been working on this thing for the past months. But in this presentation, let's first go through basic definitions of some of the most important terms. Then let's take a look at the statistics of the tech industry, and then learn about why we're where we are today and what we can really do about it. And then I'll also tell you about the future plans of Inklusiiv for the first time publicly. Yeah. Let's go through this quite quickly, but in its simplicity, diversity just means differences. And people are sometimes afraid of like that if we learn about these things, it leads that to the form that people are grouping themselves into certain kind of groups. But why we really need to learn about all of these, and this is not a perfect list, but how many different aspects there are, it's for us to make sure that our workplaces can be inclusive, not just for women or some other minorities, but for all the people.
Women and some other minorities.
Yeah.
We are 52% of the Finnish population, so we are not a minority.
Exactly, yeah. But it's so surprising how many aspects there are, and how many things there are to take into account. Then there's also these conversations, diversity doesn't always work. It doesn't always work. Well, it doesn't work if you're not inclusive. So that's why inclusion means. It means a lot. And it just means making someone feel part of the group, that they feel their voice is heard, that they feel sort of psychological safety in that room, in that team, in that company, and they feel that they matter. And this inclusion is so important. It's a key thing. And part of it is psychological safety. And this makes perfect business sense too. Because Google was studying for 2 years what is the single most important thing that is common in all of their highest performing teams. And they found out, to their own surprise as well, that it's psychological safety. So this is an important part of inclusion as well, and makes perfect business sense. There's still one term, intersectionality, that I want to show you, because diversity is not just like women and men or LGBT plus and something else, but we need to take these things into account in an intersectional way. And this means that diversity aspects, they accumulate. If one is a woman, that's one diversity aspect in tech. But if you're also LGBT plus and person of color and something else, there's multiple minority aspects, and that matters. So we need to sort of understand diversity in an intersectional way to really take it better into account. So these are the terms. Any questions about these? All clear? Let's go to take a look at the tech sector, how tech is doing. Let's first Europe. This is from last year. This is all of the capital in Europe being invested in startups. And why does this matter? Well, we already know that the next big tech companies of Europe, the next Spotifys, are coming out of this pool. And almost all of the capital is going to all male founding teams. And what's even a bigger struggle is that this is all the data we have now. We don't even know how it's for other underrepresented groups. But for sure, it's even lower than that. So kind of if we take a look at how the tech sector and who are the founders of next big tech companies, they're coming from this pool, and they're most probably men, all men.
Can I comment?
Yeah.
There are being follow-up studies of what is this. So one of the aspects is the kind of questions venture capitalists asks from different founders. And they might ask exactly the same questions, but they expect very different answers, or they relate to different answers in a different way. Risk-taking is one. Women are more likely to ask how they planned risk measures if some plans fail, whereas for male, if they say that this is a risky business, it's taking as an advantage. For women, it might be that she hasn't considered all the facts. She's not skilled enough to run a company.
Yeah.
So there's many questions in just the round that women are facing, and every answer is looked through a different kind of lens.
Yeah, actually, thanks for bringing that up, because through that we can actually jump in to think about this whole ecosystem, because this consists of startups. Then also the one startups are now big tech companies, and then we do have the venture capital scene, the investors who decide what startups are getting funding. And also most of the investors are men. And there's a lot of stereotypes. There's a lot of studies like that show that these investors, they ask founders who are men, they ask promotional questions like, how are you going to grow? And they actually ask women more often preventive questions like, how do you make sure you're not failing in this or that? I think we maybe have read the same study. And
I also been sitting in a table with 12 men, and the questions I was asked as one of the founders, there's 4 founders, 3 men, 1. And the questions for me were clearly more aggressive than for the others, and my answers were clearly more dissected of what do you actually mean. Whereas answers from my colleague, they were usually praised, like they're bold.
yeah,
So I can subscribe to this. That's very well.
then you're going to also like not the next, but the slide after.
Sorry.
No, that was a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. And I've also heard terrible experiences from women who are founders about meetings with investors with a lot of stereotypes. So this is the first one, and this is from the same study, types of discrimination, and this is in Europe as well. And this is not a perfect study. It's a start by State of European Tech. And we can see people have in Europe experienced age discrimination, gender discrimination, a lot of discrimination based on ethnicity, sexual orientation, disabilities, religion, like who knows how many different types of discriminations there are. And we don't yet know enough about these struggles, like age discrimination was mentioned earlier. Then, how about the biggest tech companies in the world? All of those, Google, Uber, Facebook, Apple, they're all really struggling with these things. They all have these kind of struggles. And that's because they have been scaling really fast with a certain kind of work culture, and it's really difficult to change it. They're all pouring money and resources into trying to change it, but it's so difficult. But how about the Nordics? Like, we have been the forerunners of equality, so we must be doing better. Well, that's not the case in tech. This study was done in Sweden. It's comparing how male and female entrepreneurs are described by investors. And when it's a male entrepreneur, they tend to say young and promising. And when it's a woman, they tend to say young but inexperienced. When it's a male, they say arrogant but very impressive competence. And when it's female, they say lacks network contacts and in need of help to develop her business concept. And this is this published on Harvard Business Review, and it's done in Sweden. And there's more different this kind of studies about how investors really, maybe mostly unconsciously, treat people in a different ways. Good looking and careless with money. Oh man. Yeah. Talk about stereotypes. And in Finland, we have been the forerunner of equality in some sort of things, but we have a lot of struggles here, and we need to understand and really wake up to those. Finland is one of the most racist countries in EU. Finland is one of the top OECD countries where we have biggest stereotypes in industries, so really strong gender stereotypes. Men go to engineering and women go to care. And this is why we should be like putting an extra effort working against these stereotypes, because we're in such a bad situation, to make sure that anyone can find their dream job. And in tech, we have some studies about gender, like that girls reject future career in science or technology, but we don't yet have enough knowledge about how it's for other minorities as well. So we're in need of more studies and more research and knowledge. So how have we ended up here? During the years learning about these things, I've also found interesting patterns about my own youth as well. Like, I was really good at mathematics, and I was told at school that I could become a mathematics teacher. But no one told me about engineering. And when I've started talking about these things, I've met so many other people, so many other women who have exactly the same experience. And why are we here? Important. Yeah,
I'm sorry, can I just comment? I've been given a very amazing compliment when I was, I guess, 17. I've been told that I will be an amazing assistant. There would be a line of people wanting me to be their assistant.
You're still lucky.
I'm lucky. Yeah.
Try telling that to a man. Yeah, is it a compliment still? Yeah.
1980, I graduated from high school in Canada, and the rule there in my area was that if you were in the top 5% of the province on your science and math scores, you would be invited into the A stream engineering programs at the local college. I never got my letter. I had 97, 98% on everything that was part of the criteria. I never got a letter of invitation.
Canada?
in Canada. I went to the registration day at the college in person, and I had the audacity to ask, where is my missing letter? Mouths fell open, people scurried into back rooms. They finally came out and said, well, of course you can enroll if you want to. But why was I not given the same letter that all of my male student peers were given in the same criteria? The criteria was clear. And that's why I was 1 in 40 in my engineering class. Everyone stood up and said, where's my letter?
Wow.
But yeah, it happens.
I just guess like how many millions and billions stories there are like this, like so many individuals have. Yeah, but one of the important concepts that we all need to learn more about all the time is unconscious biases. And we love to believe we're rational, but that's not even how our brains work. And this concept is amazing because it helps us to navigate through our lives. When I go to home, I might just unconsciously pick up my key. I don't need to learn to pick it up again like every time. But this also means that we are all the time unconsciously stereotyping people based on how they look. You're probably not thinking I'm an investor because how I look. And that happens to, like, these kind of unconscious biases happen to all of us all the time. So that's why all the companies should organize unconscious bias trainings to all of their employees, like all the time. But how the tech industry has come to where we are today. How many of you knew that women were the pioneers writing the code back in the days? So many, amazing. Yeah. In 1940s and 50s in the US, women were the coders. They were doing the groundbreaking work. And then many things happened. After the invention of personal computers, the advertising industry, maybe the Mad Men, if you have seen the series, they started to advertise personal computers to men. After which, boys at homes were much more likely to learn about how computers work from their dads. Later, also, Hollywood started producing movies about nerd guy culture, and all of the coders were white dudes. And then even the companies back in the days, they used this one type of personality test to recruit their coders. And now we know that favored men. It favored antisocial skills and some sort of this extreme stuff. And we know nowadays you don't need to be antisocial to be a coder. You need to actually have good person skills, and you need to be able to code. But there's so many these kind of things that have, along the years, affected how the culture of the tech industry has grown to become. And wait a second. Oh, I pressed something else. Yeah. So 40 years forward, this is how the tech industry looks like. This is from 2009. This is the famous PayPal mafia, the first wave of wealthy founders out of Silicon Valley who became millionaires and billionaires. And part of this group are people like Elon Musk, not in the picture, and many of the other most notable founders, investors who are now still in Silicon Valley, supporting each other, funding each other, and companies of the people who have been working with them. And there has been two misbeliefs, very strong ones, in tech industry for a long time. The first one is meritocracy. Tech industry has really blindly believed to be such a meritocratic system that, everything from power to money to jobs is perfectly distributed based on merits. But now we know, and we have actually studies that show that if you believe to be perfectly meritocratic, then you are actually worse. because then you're not able to see your unconscious biases and take the time out of to really be more meritocratic. And the other myth is culture fit. Still in Finland, we're talking a lot about culture fit, like Teemu also mentioned. It's a beautiful idea, but it easily leads to this sort of thing. You recruit people who look just like you, and you like to maybe drink beer with them. And it's also a perfect excuse when, like, let's say that the only minority person in the company leaves. So you can just say like, oh, he or she just wasn't a culture fit. But now we know that we should be hiring maybe culture ads, people who share the values, but they actually bring something new to the company, whether that's skills or perspective or something else. So things are also getting better as we have more research and knowledge. And why does this really matter so much is that even though many of us here are working in tech, but let's say you're not working in tech at all, you should still care about these things because all of us are affected by technology. In our daily lives, it affects how we live, how we move, what we eat, and how our brains work. And as technology is nowadays everywhere, it really matters that it works for all the people. And I don't have time for more, so I'm just going to show you this one example, but there's so many of these kind of examples. And take into account that this is the industry leader, Google, that has all the resources in the world to develop technologies and so forth, and they were not able to develop an artificial intelligence that is able to differentiate between a black person and a gorilla. And how did they fix this? They just banned gorillas from the algorithm. Like, what? You didn't have better ideas? I think this tells about how we solve problems that we're able to see. And most of the developers in these big tech companies are white men. Nothing against them, but when it's only them, this is what happens. And when you don't have more perspectives or an inclusive work culture, you're not able to take these kind of things into account and even fix those with the best resources in the world. And there's all the time more alarming things like this with the hate speech against people, especially women online and so forth. There's the struggles with Facebook platform in Brexit and in Trump elections. Check out the document, The Great Hack, if you want to learn more about that. And these things matter all the time more. But luckily we have all the time more research and knowledge. We still need much more. But we can start doing things if we're just brave enough to have these conversations. We need to start talking about these things. We need to hold each other accountable. We need to allocate resources in our companies to really work on these things and demand change. And here's just a few things. Change can happen. This is one sort of way to look at this. I believe that companies have like an enormous potential to change things when they start working on this thing, changing their work culture to be more inclusive and with trainings and everything. But every single one of us individuals can do something as well. So on an individual level, I believe we all can do something. So we shouldn't be thinking, oh, this is such a huge problem of this whole industry. No, we should organize, start talking about these things and do things. Then beginners, top 3. There's so many things to do, but we should at least start the conversation and start learning about our own biases, move from culture fit to culture add, to say the least. And for example, in marketing, and like actually every single one of us who's making presentations or communicating or sending emails or choosing pictures so every single one of us should pay attention to brand and visuals and communications. Just a few things we can do, but this is already the beginning. And all companies need to understand that diversity inclusion actually touch points everything in the company. It's everything from product development to marketing to recruiting to work culture. So it's actually everywhere. And all the companies should also start having diversity and inclusion programs, like knowing where they are, what are their struggles and maybe next focus points, and have resources allocated for that. And also, especially here in Finland, because in many places there's already like all the big tech companies like Google and others, they have like for 10 years they have organized unconscious bias trainings for all of their employees, for example in Silicon Valley. But we should finally in Finland start organizing more of these trainings in companies against with unconscious bias, sexism, and this sort of thing. Finland is also terrible. Like our society doesn't really understand that well what is sexism and what are those small things that happen in our life on a daily basis, those small words or this kind of things. And there's this new resource. This was published, this report, last year at Slush. It's done by this diversity VC initiative in the UK and Atomico, that is a VC venture capital fund. Inclusion in tech. It's a nice report that tells some of the things about what you can do in the company to work on diversity and inclusion things. It's not comprehensive, but there's some case studies and some sort of things. So it's a great place to learn a bit more.
Yes, it is wonderful, all these statements, and they all need to be done, but the question is how to bring this need to awareness of these companies, because I think that is the basic starting point why those things happen. If the company has people who are maybe into these things and aware of this, then it might happen, but it won't happen on its own. And of course it's not included in government policy, it doesn't happen in one end. So, and the big question is what we could do in a way to find a way how to bring it more to awareness of company levels.
Yeah, good question. First thing is to start talking about these things. For example, when I was still working at Slush, I was talking about this all the time. I was talking about this to our CEO and all the time educating him, and we were having learning sessions at the office, and during the year we really learned as the whole team so much, and no one can really never know everything, but it's a process. So the first step is to start discussing about these things and be like a change maker in your own community, whatever that is. The second thing is to really also start having these conversations in the leadership teams of companies, because that's the most important thing where things change. That's why I've also been now talking to many leaders in companies and being really vocal, giving interviews about this topic, and getting also some of the leaders like Supercell founder Ilkka Paananen and board professional Jorma Eloranta to comment these topics and being like saying why this is important. and getting it out to the world. Because we need to get those CEOs and like people who are in charge to really understand why this matters, tell the other people why it matters, and then also demand change.
So there seems to be a huge discrepancy between what the CEOs are saying about inclusion and diversity. I'm not working in tech per se, but I've been working a lot with tech companies, big companies who do a lot of employer branding and content marketing, and it's always like, yeah, we're so diverse, we're so inclusive, and they're like, hey, why are these all just Finnish 45, 55-year-old dudes in suits in the pictures? And they're like, we want to have more women, etc., etc. We want to have the female engineers represented. They're like, okay, where are the female engineers? Like, true, we don't actually have them, but they really want to. They feel like they're more diverse than they actually are, and that's a huge issue. They want to feel proud. And it kind of weird. It also feels really weird that they want to. Then once you have that one female engineer or some female data scientist, they want to form that poor girl around. Like, look, we have female data engineer here. Wow, and it feels like really weird to like. It's a good thing to represent, but then sometimes it feels like, are you doing it for the right reasons as well? Yeah. And kind of like the fancy speeches from the CEOs is always those are fancy words, but then the actual actions that they take may be a little bit different.
Yeah, and like it's a great first step that people acknowledge this is important and they start talking about it. And when they say they care about it, then we can also start pointing out to those companies, like when they don't do about it. This, for example, happened with Pride, that University of Jyväskylä was like a Pride, like communicating how they care about LGBT plus and so forth, and they have a professor who is really hostile against LGBT people, and that's when the people on social media started tweeting about it and saying, hey, you're not a safe place for these people, and then it went to the media, and it became a public discussion, and that's good as well if it leads to some sort of change, but that's definitely a struggle as well, that people say it's important but they don't really even understand it.
Well, I have a little bit of the same thing, that we can change the world, you can change the world, we all here, we have today like 40 people. We can do the first step in our communities. You can tell your mom, your boyfriend, the people at your work, you can present this stuff and start making you talk about the bias, and I do them all the time, even though I don't even realize. And now at home, sometimes my boyfriend points out, did you notice what you just said or did? And I'm like, oh yes, great, thanks for pointing it out, because it's a learning experience for me as well. But we can change the world. That's why we're here.
If I may add to that, a very practical thing that I decided to do a couple of years back already, that I got fed up with the fact that we're not necessarily progressing in my previous company as fast as I wanted to. I decided that if this is really important for me, I need to become a role model of this, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, because we all falter, we're all people, it's perfectly fine. But I started, for example, whenever I heard somebody use any kind of discriminating language, just for example, calling our Indian colleagues, instead of calling them Indians, using the Finnish word inkari, as in Native Americans. And for some reason, that seemed to be considered as an appropriate term. So then I started saying to people that, if I may use as an example, hey Elisa, may I just provide you some coaching on something you just said? And then people usually say yes. And then kind of give them the full warning that there's something coming now, a little, and then say, I noticed that you said something that I found uncomfortable, and with that word you actually offend both all the Indian people, the 1.3 billion people, and all the Native Americans as well. And then I had very good conversation, and I did this to people higher up to me in the organization as well, and nobody got offended, nobody got upset. Some people, they came like, I've never thought about that, it's just a word that we use. And then, because that's how you can make the change happen. You have to start doing that.
You can do the change every day. Small steps, but you can do it. Yeah, come on, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think just to add what Katja said, and if someone feels like, oh my god, I don't know so much as the things that Katja knows, the good thing is that when they have there are so many companies that somehow have good talks about this. So also, if you feel that you don't really know them, who is the holy cow, who is the coolest company in your company, and Google them, and you Google up a white man that are talking about this issue, send it over and says like, hey, shouldn't we also do these things? I mean, you can also use other people if you feel also that you don't have the mandate, and to sparkle and to I think that is the good thing now when there are materials as well. That if you feel a bit yourself a bit unsure of these things, but also absolutely these small things. But use that. I use that also with companies when they invite me, and then I'm like Googling maybe the parallel or those that I know, and then I'm just like, okay, the peers, look at them. Are it time for you to do this, or are you going to? I mean, you have to be progressive, and it's true. I mean, then they get it also. So I was just like adding, if you feel like, whoa, I don't know so much, but let other people talk for you as well.
Find allies.
Yeah, definitely. On YouTube or TED Talk, whatever.
Hold up and promote best example.
Yeah.
I would definitely subscribe to that and following up some other comments as well. It's good to be a champion and promoting yourself, but it is also good to not you need to take care of your mental health as well, because if there isn't mandate and there isn't, hey Malin, by the way, and yeah, if you are the only one or that resonates, you might become the bitch. Because you're pointing things out.
Yeah, choose your battles in that sense.
Yeah, you need to choose your battle. You can't like lose your mental health for this. Those are very good tips.
Yeah, so and you can also be maybe a bit sneaky about it sometimes. So something that I actually do on purpose is that when I'm talking about, for example, software testing, which is something I have a strong background on, I usually always refer people, regardless of their gender, to read stuff by Lisa Crispin or Elizabeth Hendrickson, because they are actually really gurus in that area. There are also male gurus, but I just choose to use Elizabeth and Lisa as my go-to references for most of the situations. So that is also like pointing out that there has been women around in tech for years and years and decades, and making people aware of them as well. So not all of the role models need to be men.
There's the one.
Do we recall not too long ago, just a few months ago, the photo of the black hole?
Yeah.
Whose role in the activities to make that possible? It was a lady engineer.
I don't remember her name, but yeah.
And then she got an enormous amount of hate speech online, and it was devastating to look at that thing happening. How there were these groups of people like trying to hurt her and saying it cannot be her because she's a woman and stuff like that. It was gross. Yeah.
I want to ask anyone if you can give me the practical example of how to attract people who are against diversity or kind of conservative to participate into diversity event. Because practically every time, not even in my company, but other company or other event I attended, so we have like a group of same-minded people. It looks like we even don't have the diversity in event. So it's like, okay, so we have an event, we have photos, and just the people who cares about the topic.
Preaching to the choir.
Yes, so exactly the same thing happened. The one who don't care, the one who cares, just cares.
Yeah. I think that also needs, like, we need to have allies and support, and also the ones who are not, like, for example, my only diversity aspect is that I'm a woman in tech, but I haven't like had struggles throughout my life, so I don't have enormous emotional burden myself. So that's why for example, I've taken the position talking about these topics all the time to all the guys in the tech industry. When I was working at Slush and meeting investors, for example, in London and Silicon Valley, I was asked, what do you think about diversity? And also here in Finland, and in our slush teams, I was also spending a lot of time educating people, telling them about research, concrete research statistics, case studies, and stories that have happened. So for some people, like really data-driven people in the tech industry, you need some sort of fact-based evidence like research, actual case studies, and this sort of things to change their minds. And then you also need those stories from the real life, and there's a lot of those, and I've been, for example, myself reading so many of those that I have things to I've learned how to some sort of like talk to them, and I've actually been pretty successful with this with many like many of my friends in tech, like many guys who haven't been before thinking this is important. But I think we need some like more knowledge sharing about these studies and stories, and so that we can all who has the capability or want to do it can, like in their daily lives, just do minor things. Yeah, Molly.
Yeah. I would also recommend that if you create the diversity happening, that you strategically think about who in this company would be important that do things about this, and not the one that is the most against, but someone that could be possible, and invite that person as a speaker to speak about from the company's perspective, because I think it's also important to integrate that person. Because if you have a group, that must be a decision somewhere, that must be anchored to the higher. So the higher up you are, that person needs to prepare itself to talk about the company from this perspective. Because I see that also, because then they have to, okay, there are those that don't care and just go there and talk some bullshit, but I think that the most of them feel that, okay, now we have this group here, and now I really have to sit down and maybe I need to ask your help how, to make it like easy to do it. But I see that you have to get the key persons to speak on the events as well. One of the angles, that we don't isolate ourselves, and so it becomes this homogeneous diversity. Yeah, so that I would recommend as well.
That's an answer to the question I've had in mind, is how to engage the other side. We had 300 or 400 project managers got together in Berlin or something recently, and we had one of the topics one morning for a couple hours was women in project management. And then there was like 100 lady project managers in the room, and maybe 2 or 3 men. And in the first 5 minutes, my first question was, well, why do we bother having a discussion in the room amongst ourselves when we're not going to change anything without engaging the rest of the population? In other words, all the men project managers who are in the next room talking about something they think is more interesting. How do we engage the rest? I mean, this is a great forum, but I'd love to hear any suggestions about how do we engage the men in our peer groups to raise up this topic more.
But I think Katja had a good.
Your suggestion, that one is good.
Yeah, but this is the base, and this is the pinpoint. That's why I wanted it to.
Yes, like
yours is practical.
Yeah. It's also just the top around.
It's also important to have groups like safe places for minorities where they can share things and discuss in a safe place. But then to really make the next step of change, we need to start talking about this to people who don't yet advocate for this thing, but need to learn about it to make more change.
If I may add a very quick note, one of the examples that Accenture does in this is that inclusion and diversity is not something that is add-on or some fluffy sugar coating on the cake. It's actually in the business metrics for each of the business areas that we do. So it's part of how they run. I just left, so I still say we, but how they run the business. So it's not just something on top of everything. So that's kind of to your question, how do we get people invited? And once we did one session where we invited everyone to an LGBT awareness training, and we just called it mandatory for all of the leaders.
Well done.
I think awesome.
I have one question.
Yeah.
So I also work for a big company, one of the largest here, so IT company, Tieto. And I found it interesting that you mentioned Google several times in your presentation. Like one of them was that example that they are in the news for some cases of discrimination or harassment, etc. So they always pop up in the news. And the other example, towards the end of your speech, you mentioned that they run for 10 years already those inclusion trainings and bias training. So can you comment, like, do you feel it also backfires when you impose on people something that is maybe against their nature, or how to deal with that? Because like the saying that same of the kind flock together. So if we try too hard to say, let's differentiate, let's put different people together, like, does it really backfire? Like it seems it does in Google every time. And how to overcome this?
Yeah. There's good unconscious bias trainings, there are bad unconscious bias trainings, and there's also like bad unconscious bias trainings can actually backfire and be even worse if people who don't believe in diversity and inclusion are like need to go to that one and they feel defensive, for example. And also because tech industry has this is such a deep-rooted problem in the tech industry and in the culture. For the tens of years, and these companies have been scaling so fast, and there has been these beliefs in meritocracy and these sort of things for such a long time. So that's why the culture has been growing towards this direction, and that's even though when they're like putting a lot of resources to try to make change, making a change is so freaking hard, and it's not happening now like fast enough in tech. So we need to kind of do something, escalate things to actually make more change, because it's not happening fast enough even when they are putting resources. But there's some new tech companies that are now doing IPOs or like really growing fast that have like diversity and inclusion better in place, and I believe that when those grow, they set an example for the next ones, and people learn. So maybe we have also hope in the future, and I think we've run out of time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but we'll go through this and we take more questions later.
Yeah.
So let's.
So last thing, maybe I'll tell you more about Inklusiiv, and that's it. So this is also an example of what just one person can do. So in April, when I was shocked about the situation in Finland, and I was really thinking that I don't even want to live here if the work culture is like this. Like, it was so shocking to me coming from the international point of like perspective. So in 2 weeks, I created a website with zero budget and put some articles and research there. And I got help from so many people, and I noticed there's a critical mass of people who care about these things. People helped in coding that website, with the content, and then notable business leaders in Finland actually gave comments why this matters, and it went out to the media. And since then, I've been working on this thing with a bunch of other people. So we have an amazing and diverse group of like team members, group of people. We're all working now on a voluntary basis, and I can't wait until we get to launch our team, because it's not just me. Now we already have more people, and we have just officially created an association, so a non-profit organization that aims to share the knowledge about these things, diversity and inclusion, in the workplace context. So for the companies, for the organizations, and be this kind of community for these things. And we're still working on like putting the organization together, but any individual can join as a member, and companies can join as supporting members. So if you're a company or if you know a company who wants to join, they can send me email, get in touch. We're still like putting together how to build this community and how it all works. So happy to chat about it more. But I believe there's there's now this huge wave of change happening, and so many different organizations doing excellent work and people, and I've been talking with many people that there's so much momentum now to do things. So we must just first start really being brave enough, talking about these things, these difficult, tough things, and start doing something and taking action. And this was like the first week after the launch. Startups and venture capital companies and startup accelerators started in April sharing their diversity data, and like there's already happened a lot of things in Finland, and there's been a good buzz for the past 4 months, but I can't wait to continue, and I hope with more people involved, like being change makers in their own lives, because this is what I want to see, a future where we all can find our dream careers, be in a workplace that is inclusive. And for that to happen, we need diverse role models, and we need to make our workplaces inclusive. And it's not easy, so we need efforts and we need resources. And this is the last sentence I want to leave you with. Diversity doesn't work without inclusion, and inclusion is difficult. It's not easy, but we can learn and improve and make things better. This is my email if you want to get in touch. And thank you for these conversations. Happy and humbled to be here.
My name is Heidi Pech and I'm from Futurice, and I think my speaker slot just finished 2 minutes ago, but I hope, no worries. I hope that you still are awake and can stay for a little bit longer time. I'm not here speaking as an expert, but I'm here speaking from a way how we at Futurice introduce this topic to our new joiners. And about my role, I work with employer branding and recruitment. I'm part of our equity workforce, which is basically a group of people who are super enthusiastic about this topic of diversity and inclusion and are taking it forward. And I also do some stuff with our talent management and learning and development. Few words first about Futurice, and then I'm actually going to run you the session that we do to our new joiners. And if you have any questions along the way, please ask me. Let's see if I'm able to. At least we can have a dialogue. I may not have any correct answers. And my clicker is this mouse that does not work. Okay. All right. So Futurice is originally Finnish company. Now we are present in 5 countries in Europe. We are 550 people and growing quite fast. We've been existing since year 2000, so nearly 20 years. And we are basically IT consultancy, so we help other companies with their digital transformation. So in terms of our own people, majority of our people are working in tech, developers. We have also designers and advisors. So that's the kind of the competence mix. So that's like in a super small nutshell, the company. And now I would like to take you to put yourself into the shoes of having joined Futurice maybe between 1 or 2 months ago, and now you're on this onboarding camp. You're either in this nice cottage in Nuuksio or on an island in Sipo in a nice nature setting, and you're a group of maybe 10 to 15 people. This is the moment where you kind of get a deep dive into the Futurice culture and the way we work and what we hold important. All right, let's go. Hi all. So in this session we will talk about diversity and inclusion, which is something that we find very important, and it's something that we have started to work on, and we see that this is a journey, and we would like to invite you all to be part of this journey together with us. And here's shortly what we will be looking at today. So we'll be talking about in general what's diversity and inclusion, a little bit about how does Futurice see these topics. Then we will see some numbers on how does Futurice look through these lenses at the moment. And then we talk about what can each and every one of us do to create a more inclusive environment. You'll see a bit about what resources and actions we have going on at the moment, and then you will have a chance to participate in an exercise. So, what is diversity and inclusion? There's different ways to look at this topic. I think one important thing is that every single person is different. There are no two identical people in the world. Quite often when we talk about diversity, we get kind of into this tunnel of thinking that, okay, it's only a gender, or it's only an age, or it's only some kind of like externally visible thing. But it's important to remember that it's a lot of things. It's about your characteristics, it's about your background, about your life experiences, and it's about multiple things. And we also are here in this, what I'm about to show you, you will see that there's certain things that we are looking at. But at the same time, we are conscious that those are not the only things that create diversity or that are the basis of diversity. Okay, so there's this pair of words. There's diversity and inclusion. And we like to use this metaphor of diversity is being invited to the party and inclusion is being invited to dance. And sometimes at this point somebody asks me that, okay, well, can you have one without the other? And the way I like to think about it is that if you have diversity but no inclusion as a company, most likely you might get many different people, but it's quite likely that the people who are not part of the majority will leave because they don't find their home there. They don't feel comfortable there. They don't feel that they can be themselves. And if you have inclusion without the diversity, well, then you have the Finnish tech industry. You have the group of similar people sitting in the same room, creating things that are suitable for similar than they are. So that's the kind of the how I'm kind of thinking this metaphor. Okay, then sometimes there's some discussion internally in our company about, yes, everybody should have like absolutely equal chances for everything. And I think, at least for me, this picture has been quite an eye-opening one. So if we are talking about equality, and here it's a little bit about semantics, because I think the English word equality and the Finnish word tasa-arvo are not, they don't have the same kind of connotations. And the English word equality is maybe more, if you translate it word to word, maybe it's more like tasapäistäminen, like everyone is of exactly equal. which in this case, when there's a baseball game and these 3 people are watching, or trying, some of them, to watch the baseball game, and you assume that everybody has exactly the same starting point, the result is not, well, for the tall person it's nice. Then if we talk about equity, this means that we take into account the kind of the starting point of every person. That for certain people, quite often minorities, you might have to give some extra support to put them onto the same line so that their chance is the same as everybody else's chance. So you give them a couple of boxes. So now they can all see nicely across the fence and watch the game. And this is the ideal world. This is the kind of the dream future. And I think this is what we should be aiming for in the long term. But for now, as long as we are operating in a society where structures work in a certain way, this is kind of like what we can do now immediately. This is what we can do. This is the utopia. So we have at Futurice also thought ourselves, like, how do we interpret these terms and what do they mean for us? So in terms of diversity, as a consultancy company, B2B consultancy company, we are helping the customers, and we are indirectly we are impacting the lives of actually a huge number of people through our customers when we are creating processes or services or applications for them. So and the people who are using those services or processes or applications, there's, like, we are talking about millions. So to be able to actually make them relevant, I think somebody actually mentioned this, that we should be able to not only have the 35-year-old white males perspective, but we should ourselves have the perspective of the society for whom we are building these services or products. And then inclusion, we have the kind of the responsibility to make sure that everybody feels, first of all, that they can be themselves, and feels that they don't have to fit into certain kind of mold, and they are like a fully appreciated member of the Futurice family. We have 4 values, and actually I think already before we started to talk about diversity and inclusion in Futurice, it was somehow kind of embedded into our values without us almost realizing it. So with care, when we talk about care, we mean that we care about each other, we care about our customers, and we care about the world, the society that we live in. With the trust that helps us with those unconscious biases and to overcome them, and if and when there's those difficult moments and those using the words that are not so, that you don't feel comfortable with having the trust, then that helps you in bringing up the issue, because you can assume that the person is not saying it because they are bad or that their intentions are bad. We always assume good intentions. We have you could say we have extreme transparency in the company. Everybody has access to practically all the information, and that also helps people that they can make conscious decisions. And like suppression of information is actually a technique of silencing people. So this helps that it's inclusive. And with continuous improvement, which is our 4th value, we ensure that our work is like we are all the time working towards becoming better and better also in this topic, and that we are setting the bar higher. Then looking at the current situation at Futurice, here are some numbers. We did last spring, we did a diversity and inclusion audit, or actually an external D&I consultancy ran the audit for us. And these are some of the demographics that we found out from the audit. So we have 31% of women and 42 nationalities. We are, in terms of age, we are not very diverse. Over half of the people are in their 30s. And in terms of the education, we also are not very diverse. Nearly everybody has some kind of university degree, academic degree. So these are something we have to be conscious of and understand what it means for us. I think in terms of the nationalities, we are fine. We are okay. This is something we are currently digging deeper into. In Finland, the nationality number is, I think, 38 in our Helsinki office. And the gender balance, as the largest number of our employees are developers. So if you look at only the developers, then it's not 1/3 of them are not women, then it's only 11%. And actually one of them is here today, Susanna. But still, I think it's this is something that we are definitely working to improve and doing steps.
Plus points for having actually the other there, because as far as I know, majority of the companies, they don't even recognize the other gender at the moment. So good job.
Thanks. We actually, before we had this study, we were pulling. These two were the stats that we had ourselves in our HR system, and our HR system is a fairly small company, and we pushed them, and then I think in the beginning of this year they agreed to add other button there in the in the gender part. So we have also, like in our HR system, we have now the other, but it took a while to work with them before they were willing to, or I guess able to, add that option there. Yeah. But yeah, it's actually quite small things that make it quite difficult. And like from an HR perspective, like for example, this kind of stuff, like this is now from the survey, from the diversity and inclusion survey, but it's not like we don't have this kind of information in our HR systems.
Of course not.
Exactly, like it's and it's not exactly that we want to have. Like I think it's very good to know this, but I don't exactly want that a person has to tick a box. Yeah. Okay, then I said that we are digging a bit deeper into the nationality part. So we have done something called diversity dashboard, and we started by doing. This is based on our HR database. So we started by looking into gender and doing analysis on different kind of looking at the gender different ways and the gender balance, and we have this. Online dashboard accessible to all employees. It's internal, and they're like the person can kind of, there's these toggle bars. They can select a different kind of competence or different site, and they can see what's the distribution of. Here it was still men and women. We did this we published this in January. So here the data was from end of last year. So it was still only like male or female. And there's a lot more here. This is just a snapshot what I could fit into the slide, but there's quite a lot of different kind of ways to look into like this, like how does the company look in terms of gender. And right now we are working on the second version of the dashboard, and that will be based on nationality. So looking at like how are different. We have 8 offices, so like what's the how are there's different nationalities, and not only looking at the nationalities, but also grouping people into kind of like geographic areas, because with the perspective that if you have 5 different nationalities, but all of them are from Nordic countries, probably your life experience has been kind of similar, versus if you have 5 different experience people and they are, let's say, all from different continents, then you probably have much more diversity between those 5 people. But those are, anyone can go and look at those. And at some point we are planning to make some kind of a externally published version of these also. It's not out yet, but will be at some point. Then we have a code of conduct, which is very simple. This is how we what we do and what we don't do. Quite in a way self-evident things, but also important things, so that they are kind of the commonly agreed rules of how we behave with each other. Then what can every person do to create more inclusive environment? I think to me it's actually quite simple in terms of being an individual, private individual. I think really the starting point is empathy and being curious about the people around you. So I think it's really about meeting the other person as they are and being interested in them and listening what they have to say and being empathetic towards their feelings and their experiences. We also want that everybody can be themselves. We don't want that everybody becomes kind of the same. We want to celebrate that everybody's different. It's the new normal, or the new black. Let's say it's a new black. And then we have this saying at Futurice that always assume good intentions. What we mean by that is that when people are like super passionate about their work and the company and so on, so then sometimes it leads to clashes and there can be some heated discussions. So in those moments it's especially very important to always stop and think and kind of remind yourself that yes, well, we have different points of view, but we both are coming from a good place. Like even though you see this thing differently than I do, but our both the intention is good. And then a very practical thing, because we are so many different nationalities, so always use a language that everybody in the same room with you understands. So if there's a group of Finns and then there's like some people who don't speak Finnish, then also the group of Finns should speak English.
That also applies to each and every one of us, even we are mostly white females here, is that we all have our generations long history of communications. So we all speak different languages and we all understand completely differently each word. Mm-hmm. So they all have many connotations and built during generations. So you can't really even differentiate the communications between nationalities. So even within a nationality is different.
Within a language, same language.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I find the same with English.
Yeah. Obviously with English.
Well, the Spanish English and the Chinese English and the Russian English, they're all, but just even British and US, which is both mother tongue English.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Huge difference,
yeah. My parents come from a very poor conditions from the countryside. Their history is filled with low-end industry jobs. And my mother cleaning and low-end services at the hospital and things like that. So she was a baker also. But anyway, something that doesn't involve a lot of languages or nationalities or cultural influences from all over the world. But the vocabulary and the experiences that have been built inside of me are their parents' experiences and their parents' experiences.
Actually, that's a nice point that you bring up, because I was actually meaning to mention it when I introduced myself, that on top of my work role, I'm also a mother. So I have 5 and 7-year-old kids. And to me, this topic, I think it came almost more through my children when they were born. And I started thinking about this. So I have 2 kids that that they are Niilo and Emil, and I don't know if I can say even that they are boys. I think they can choose what they want to be when they are of the age that it's relevant. But when they were born, like I kind of woke up to this thing that I find it important that I don't impose certain assumptions on them, or that they can really try to be who they want to be, and I should just support them in their strengths, whatever they are. So whether they play with the cars, or my other kid was at some point pushing dolls prams in the supermarket, so he got as a third birthday present a pink dolls pram, and he was very happy pushing it around and playing the cars and pushing the Star Wars things there, and like but these kind of things. So I think also as a parent there's a responsibility in kind of bringing the new the generations to come. But okay, no, it's a bit off topic, sorry about that. So then we have some resources inside Futurice. There's a couple of different channels through which to give feedback. We have a weekly survey where people can give anonymous feedback. And then we have a whistleblower if there's like a more serious incidents that you can bring up cases that either you have experienced something or you have witnessed something inappropriate. And then we have this equity workforce, which is basically from every office there's somebody part of this, and it's the group who really started to work on these diversity and inclusion issues, and they are kind of driving these topics forward. And also this group is open for new people to join if they are interested. And then we have some discussion board discussions and in Slack. And then we have different kind of workshops or projects on different offices. Most of these are now from the Helsinki office, which I know of. But so this is not a complete list, but this kind of professional women's networks such as Future Female. Then we have some like workshops with, like, for example, Mimmit Koda, where we help women who want to learn more about coding and who want to really learn coding skills. So we organize help them to learn that. We actually teach them that, or Hackres or Code Bar. And then also we want to kind of not only look inside the company, but also impact the structural problem that we have, that there's not that many, for example, girls in tech business or women in tech business. So Superada and Shaking Up Tech are ways to encourage high school girls to go into study technical subjects. So we are involved in different kind of things. And currently what's going on in practice with the diversity and inclusion, we had the audit, and we have made a short and long-term plans based on the audit results. We do know that people who are not who feel that they are in a minority, the results of those groups are not as good as the people who are in the majority group. So we are focusing especially of like improving that they would feel more better and included. We also want to push for societal change, not only looking inside or looking at our own numbers or so on, but like kind of work together with also outside world to make that more equal. And we are running diversity and inclusion and unconscious bias trainings, and like prioritizing there the people who are leading teams. So we feel that they have very direct impact, and then expanding it to the wider company. Okay, so that's very shortly what Futurice is, where we are at the moment with this diversity and inclusion topic. It's a journey. We are not there yet. We will probably never be there, but we need to work on it, and everybody needs to work on it. So I think we need to challenge each other, and we need to be kind of it's not going to happen overnight, and it's also not going to happen by itself. So I think it needs like concrete things that are done, concrete actions. Okay, now I have a small exercise for you. And I hope that for this exercise that you will be ready to share something personal about yourself, not for the whole group, but to somebody. And so be open-minded.
This is the time to leave.
Yeah. If this sounds scary, now run. Okay, so the exercise is it's called a technique called radical listening. Radical listening, and radical listening it's very simple. It means that you have a pair where one person speaks and the other one listens, and the one who listens, they really listen. They don't say anything. Preferably, they don't even gesture. It's quite difficult for me, at least. But really, like kind of giving their full attention to what the speaker is saying, and absorbing it all in, and trying to quiet their own thoughts from kind of making links to their own ideas or experience, but really giving the space to that other person to speak. And the speaker, the topic we would like everybody to speak about with your pair is a time when you have felt excluded. And it can be something big or impactful in your life, or it can be a very, very small thing. I wasn't invited to lunch. It can be something really recent that happened last week or maybe last year, or it can be from your childhood. It can be anything. And of course now you can you of course you don't know each other, but you can choose what level you want to share. But I think this exercise is the most powerful when you're really open to share. And it's done in pairs, and the idea is that first one person talks about their experience for 3 minutes while the other one just listens. And when the 3 minutes is up, I will tell, and the pair swaps. Then who was listening will speak, and who was speaking will listen. And another 3 minutes, and then that's it. You don't need to share anything to the big group. You just share with your pair. And then we talk about how it was. How was that experience? Okay, I promise I only will take a few more minutes, then you can continue. The conversations look to be like super, super interesting and intense. How was that? Weird?
Difficult. Good discussion.
Difficult? Good discussions?
The first 3 minutes was like 1 hour.
Were you the speaker or listener?
I was the speaker.
Which one was harder? Speaking or listening?
Speaking. Listening. And not interjecting or trying to it's super important, especially when this kind of an exclusion story, not to jump in, because people are so prone to similar happened to me, and then they kind of override the conversation. But it somehow also feels super awkward to just be like.
Or you not be able to ask probing questions to get more information.
Or show your sympathy in a way.
Yeah, I think that's one of the kind of, at least to me, one of the learning points of this exercise, that it's, personally, I find it super difficult not to kind of okay, and what, and I know this time when I had, because I think the one of the points is that this exercise teaches you that sometimes it's really important that you're just listening and kind of don't let the your own thoughts or your own experiences to come on the way of that listening, because sometimes even it's not your intention, but then those can kind of hijack if the other person has something, especially something difficult to tell or something that's maybe emotional for them. So it can kind of sidetrack easily. So I think it's I agree. I've done this with 5 minutes. Yeah. But that was like the day 2 or 3 of this diversity and inclusion training. So there had been many.
Could the other person speak for 5 minutes?
Both.
Were they able to keep speaking for 5 minutes?
Sort of, but not like directly on the topic. I think it really depends, like if you have had some hurting experiences in this area, and that's the other point of this exercise, is the kind of like the content, and kind of pointing out that nearly everybody has some kind of an experience of having felt excluded. In our onboarding, like there's quite many men also, and it's quite interesting to hear from them also that they also have these experiences, like even though they are like the white men dominant in the tech industry, but like I think it's very important to understand that nearly everybody as a human at some point of their lives has felt excluded, and most of the times that feeling is not very nice. So we kind of use this as a reminder that let us, all of us, act in a way that we don't cause that feeling of exclusion to somebody else involuntarily. I don't think anybody will cause it on purpose, but involuntarily, that we don't make somebody feeling excluded. So that's kind of the other reason why we feel that this exercise is useful with that topic. Okay, I'm getting to the end of my slot. There's some further reading there. I think somehow you might get these slides, but there's some links here, and at least this is what Katja was showing, the stats from the State of European Tech survey. So we just basically show this always to our new joiners to kind of if they want to get more into the topic on general level. So here's some interesting videos and talks and research. And that's it from me.